This video is a demand for justice for Nikki Cheng Saelee McCain. She is a victim of the mass femicide crisis. She disappeared from Redding, California as of May 18th of 2024. Her disappearance is now ruled as an assumed homicide. There's a mass femicide crisis in our world, a global crisis. Total shock calls for justice for the life of Nikki Cheng Saelee McCain. We are left with many unanswered questions as to the cause of her disappearance. Women and young girls vanish all over the world every single day, while law enforcement does little to nothing to uncover the truth of the mystery. What is happening to them? Where are those women and young girls going? Why are they disappearing? Who is taking them? Is there a more sinister agenda at play? How is this being allowed to happen? These are the questions I'm asking myself, and they need to be answered. I intend to uncover the answers. Human sex trafficking is one cause. There's also the underworld organ harvesting trade that is responsible for the disappearance of not only women, but indiscriminate of gender or racial targeting. Indigenous women living on reservation land are particularly at risk in these instances because tribal police have no jurisdiction for homicide cases on the res. Feds have to take over the cases and end up doing nothing to resolve those cases. This legal void allows for murderers, sex predators, and human traffickers to target women and young girls in those indigenous communities living on reservation land. Juarez, Mexico is one specific location the mass femicide crisis has reached an extent of horrendous atrocity. So many women and young girls are abducted, raped, and killed there, they call it the city where women are disposable. Local authorities are involved in the disappearances and no action is taken to resolve them. Countless children are left motherless to be raised by maternal grandmothers that must fill the shoes of their daughters as mothers to their own grandchildren. Girls as young as 13 or younger are taken in the cases that I researched from Ciudad Juarez. Women's rights activists and journalists that have attempted to expose this crisis to the rest of the world were targeted for murder as an attempt to silence their resounding voices. But the crisis is a global affair and can't be isolated to any singularly specific place. It's happening right now as I'm reading this to you, near to you and far removed. Everywhere on the planet, all over the world, women are being killed. That is the definition of mass femicide, and it is a global crisis gone unanswered. In the instance of Nikki Cheng Saelee McCain, she vanished from out of her car on a fairly normal night. No explanation. She was never found and is now presumed deceased as a result of what is assumed to be homicide by the Shasta County Sheriff's Office, who took over the case from the Redding Police Department, whom it was initially reported to after nobody heard from her for multiple days. I discovered her missing person poster on a number of light poles it had been posted on, and then looked into her story, which led me to writing this. Nikki Cheng Saelee McCain, a resident of Redding, California, where I myself grew up and was raised until 8th grade, the region of Northern California near Redding is known for murders, cults, and disappearances of this nature. Much violent crime occurs up there in the last stop for gas station backwoods, as I call it. The last anybody heard from the 39-year-old mother of 4 children, she texted family she was on her way to her mother-in-law's property on the Redding Rancheria reservation land in Shasta County, after an instance involving a trip to the hospital for her brother-in-law that evening. Nikki was due to appear in court for a settlement conference a few days following the date of her disappearance. Her husband, Tyler McCain, had been up for charges of domestic violence perpetrated against her, including multiple felony counts of corporal injury to a spouse, false imprisonment, criminal threats, and assault, which involved tying her up and beating her for multiple hours in their home. The Shasta County District Attorney's Office dropped all charges due to Nikki Cheng not being able to testify against him in court as a result of her then extremely recent disappearance, an example of the many failures of the justice system. A person of interest was identified by law enforcement authorities, describing the suspect as the driver of a red-colored truck that they say that may have picked up a male adult in the area of Highway 36 in proximity to the western portion of Tehama County by the R. Wild Horse Ranch or the Begum Gorge Bridge, spelled B-E-E-G-U-M, Begum Gorge Bridge. According to an article written about the case which is now currently ruled by police as an instance of assumed homicide. Nikki Cheng's husband, Tyler, hasn't been accused or suspected of any wrongdoing in connection to her mysterious disappearance, but there are a number of peculiar instances that I will clarify further in this publication. After reading a timeline of events by the Reading Record Searchlight newspaper publication, there are some questionable instances. Police discovered her car 3 days after she was reported missing by her family. They never specified where it was found and also declined to answer the questions sent to them by the Record Searchlight for the timeline of events I am presently citing. Nikki Cheng's husband, Tyler, was arrested just over 2 months after her disappearance for an unrelated traffic violation after ammunition was uncovered in his vehicle, which was a violation of a criminal protective order in place against him that prohibited him from being in possession of firearms or ammunition. He bailed out and was released. His home was eventually searched by law enforcement authorities, and it was after that search police made a sudden and surprise announcement that after almost a year of investigating her disappearance as a missing persons case, they were now ruling the disappearance of Nikki Cheng Saelee McCain as a homicide. That was in March of this year, 2025. She vanished in May of 2024, as of May 18th, and was reported missing by her family on the 22nd of May, 2024. Her vehicle was reported as being discovered by police on May 25th of 2024. Tyler McCain, her husband, did not attend either of the 2 rallies that were held by local community members in response to the ongoing search for the whereabouts of Nikki Cheng Saelee McCain. There was also a billboard that was put up. FBI and Homeland Security were both brought in on the case by the time of Tyler McCain's home being searched for presently unknown reasoning prior to the switch from missing persons case to ruled homicide, assumed homicide. Tyler McCain never spoke publicly about his wife's disappearance for nearly a year, but finally spoke at a press conference Nikki Cheng's family held at the Shasta County Emergency Services Office for the purpose of reminding everyone the case was an ongoing and still active missing persons case at that time, and police were still looking for her. That was held on March 10th of this year, 2025. 4 days later, on March 14th, Tyler McCain's home was then searched, and her disappearance was suddenly ruled a homicide, but in no connection to him, and no reasoning has been provided as to why his home was searched. I find that extremely suspicious. I also find it unusual given the history of violence against Nikki Cheng by her husband as to why he has never been considered a potential cause for her disappearance, especially given the fact he was up for charges of domestic abuse that just so happened to get dropped as a result of her disappearance mere days before the court date. Cover-ups and connections to power in high places afford some people the privilege of literally getting away with murder. I cannot say that Tyler McCain is involved in the disappearance of his now presumed deceased wife. That would be libel. There is no reason to believe he himself, Tyler McCain, the husband of Nikki Cheng Saelee McCain, is involved in her disappearance, and I would like to make this clear in this publication. I'm not saying he has anything to do with her disappearance. The police have never said that he has anything to do with her disappearance. There is no evidence to support that he has anything to do with her disappearance. That's for the record. But somebody is responsible for the disappearance of Nikki Cheng Saelee McCain. And the only way we can discover this is to not allow her story to be buried by the 24-hour news cycle. Total Shock demands justice for Nikki Cheng Saelee McCain, and I ask you to share her story with everyone you know and to post this to social media. Spread awareness and bring light to this instance of mass femicide, because that will require law enforcement to provide further answers. Otherwise, her case will go cold and be forgotten. Total Shock demands justice for Nikki Cheng Saelee McCain and all women that are victims of the mass femicide crisis that plagues our world. Left unanswered. Nikki Cheng Saelee McCain disappeared. There is no answers as to what happened to her, and it looks as if her case will be allowed to go cold and eventually be forgotten given how long it's taken. So spread this story.